Hello, you join me trying to create a rear projection screen. Now, I've made lots of front projection screens before, but I've never tried a rear projection at all. So I've just tried to figure out the easiest, kind of cheapest way of doing it, and it is an experiment, so it may not work. The reason for doing this is that we have recently built a 4-poster bed. And what we want to do is to be able to lie in bed and watch a film. And we're thinking the best way of doing this would be to project from a projector out here onto a screen around there. Then of course we can be in here and watch the film on the screen's picture. Now, so I've come up with a cunning plan, and I'll explain all over the next few minutes. So if you want to do this, what you'll need is a tape measure and some pens, a saw, preferably a miter saw, but if you're good at cutting straight you could use a normal handsaw, a file, a knife of some kind, and some tape. For materials, we are going to use 32mm waste pipe. This is 32mm push fit waste pipe. You'll want 2, potentially 4 90-degree connectors. And I've chosen to use T-piece connectors for the bottom of the screen. Now hopefully that will all become clear. For the actual surface of the screen itself, we are going to try and use a frosted shower curtain. This particular one I think is going to be a bit too thin, but any kind of frosted or translucent material should do fine. So, what do you do? So one of the first things you should do is really to consider the material that you're working with. In this case we want to make a screen, so what aspect ratio do we want it to be? People have different preferences, but I'm going to make mine at a 16:9 aspect ratio. That means it's slightly higher than some of the other alternative widescreen ones you can get, but that also means it can cope with whatever I want to do. So if we want to play Xbox or watch broadcast television, that'll fit on a 16:9. Whereas if you make it any of the wider screen formats for films, then you're limited to that. So you can always show a narrower picture on a taller screen, but you can never show a taller picture on a narrow screen. Once you've decided on your aspect ratio, the next thing to do is to think about your material. So in this case we've picked 2-meter lengths of pipe, and we ought to make a 16:9 screen. So it's easier for us to use the material we've got in the format that it currently is, so to minimise the amount of cutting and to minimise the amount of wastage. So from each pipe I want to make the top piece and the vertical piece. So let's do some maths. For a 16:9 screen, if you think of it as a distance, you have 16 across and 9 up, which is 25. Now we've just said for each pipe we need to go across and up. So if I take a 200cm pipe and divide it by 16 plus 9, which is 25, I've got 8 centimetres per unit. So if I times that by 16, that means that in my 2-meter pipe, if I cut it at 128 centimetres, the horizontal will be 128, but the vertical will be 72. And 128 over 72 is effectively 16:9, or 1.777. So never assume that the material is the length it should be. I've already measured this, and I've marked it at 128 centimetres. Which is spot on. So, having made your mark on your pipe, we're looking to do one cut that will be useful on both sides. There we go. One. That's the 2. So hopefully we now have 2 verticals and 2 horizontals. Take your file and just deburr the edges. then fingers crossed, we should just be able to push together to make our screen. Now these connectors don't unscrew, they literally just push fit. Because it's waste pipe, it doesn't have any high pressure connectors, so it's just a push together. May go up shot a bit. 1. Two. Together with a 3 and a 4. So hopefully that will give us the frame that we need. Good, pretty happy with that. So what we're going to try and do next is basically cut the shower curtain to the size that we want the screen to be, and then to tape it on around, drawing it tight if we can. Wait and see. To make the cut, I'm going to take my multi-tool. Just an aside, this is a Gerber hands-free multi-tool, which I much prefer to Leatherman. If you're on the top of scaffolding, you want to get a nut undone, you can open this one with one hand, whereas Leatherman's you have to kind of get two hands and pull the thing apart. Anyway, for today, we just want the knife attachment. And ta-da! In effect, we now have our screen. So I'm going to stop the video for a moment and tie the screen onto the frame. So I'm just halfway through putting the screen on. What I've done is to cut the tape into little tabs. It seems to be easier to put both sides on first and then work along the long edges. So having taped the centres, I'm working outwards. And just pulling gently taut as we go, in both directions. You get a feel for how the material's moving, and the pipes are doing exactly what I wanted, which is they're offering a bit of elasticity. So by taping them on slightly inwards, they're keeping the skin of the screen taut, which is a good thing. Okay, here we go. First fitting. I found actually drawing it at the corners was quite useful as well as in the centre. But for the moment, I'm pretty happy with it. Things to avoid, I did kneel on it at one point, which put a little mark in, but it seems to be stretching that out. Otherwise, I think it's highlighting why real rear projection fast fold screens cost about £200 or £300, because there are some imperfections here. I'm noticing that the pipes aren't completely flush to the face of the material, which is making it not sit incredibly neatly. Talking about price, actually, this whole thing is about £7 UK. The connectors are 85p each from the Toolstation. The pipe is £1.30 per length from Wicks. So here in Oxford, the Toolstation actually inside Wicks, so you can get them both at the same time. And the shower curtain was about £4. I've easily got enough material to make another one of these, if not 3 more if I wanted. So let's have a look and see how it performs.